Hello everybody, this is a new episode of 麦尾闲谈. In this episode, I'm very happy to introduce a new friend to this channel, but also an old friend of mine, Lauren Heron. This episode is going to be released in two parts. In this part one, we're going to be talking with Lauren Heron to hear about her professional experience, her newly published book, and also her advice for job seekers in today's challenging economy. So we got to know each other back when, I believe it was 2004, 2005 when I was working in St. Louis. So I had due to the business connection, we got to know each other. So Lauren is a mother of two and also is a top leader for a couple of very successful business. So we love to have Lauren to give a brief introduction about herself. So Lauren, I will turn this stage to you.
Thank you so much, Melody. It's such a pleasure to be here and speaking with your audience. I am CEO of Impact Group. We are a career and leadership development company. And then we also just launched a new business called Earn Your Worth Careers. And so basically that is taking the services that we've delivered to Fortune 500 and businesses over the last 30 years. And now we're actually bringing these career and leadership development services to the consumer market. And so we specialize in leadership development. We help with career transition, so helping people find a new job. And then the other thing that we do at Impact Group is we support corporate relocation. So all over the world, we help with expat assignments and helping the spouse find a new job in the new location, and cultural support as well. So I think those aspects especially might be interesting to your audience as well.
Excellent. One thing I want to share, because I'm a mom of one boy, I want to mention as well, Lauren also a proud mom of two. And the youngest one is actually very young, several months. So very much appreciate Lauren's time out of her busy schedule. So with that, I want to transition to Lauren's newly published book. I believe the book was published during the probably July 13th of this year. So the book is called Take Control of Your Job Search, 10 Emotions You Must Master in Landing Your Job. So you can find this book from Amazon. So congratulations, Lauren, on your new book. So with this, people always in job searching journey, they take a lot of time refining their resume and going through a lot of technical stuff, right? Just make sure their resume look good, their experience look in when they search for a new job. But your book has a totally different type of emphasis on job searching. Talk about emotions, talk about attitude. So I'm wondering what prompted you to start writing this book, how you see emotions play a role in the job search journey.
Absolutely. Well, I knew I had a book in me on job search. I just didn't know what the angle was going to be. And there's so many books out there that I wanted to make sure that it had a unique approach to it. And so it wasn't very long ago when I was going through a product development process within Impact Group. We were looking at what are the best practices in job search and what is the contemporary job seeker needing to be successful. Mm-hmm. And what we kept on coming up against was not just you need the resume, you need to know how to interview, but we kept on talking to individuals in the job search process who kept referring to the emotional journey and the ups and downs they were experiencing during their job search. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes we would find that someone would be very successful and they were very excited, and then all of a sudden they didn't get the job and they were back at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And they were very discouraged and very frustrated, and they felt like they were on a roller coaster. And that's when all of a sudden it hit me. I said, we know from the coaching process, helping individuals go through career transition, the coach provides so much emotional support. Yet the job seeker who is going about their search on their own, they might not be getting that level of support from some of their own support network, whether that's a spouse or friends. And so I wrote this book as if you're getting coaching from me or from one of my coaches at Impact Group, so that you can have that emotional support along the way, because we know that that is so important in order to be able to be successful in the end with finding a job, because it is going to be full of ups and downs. And so how do you make sure that you are in control of your job search, not it is in control of you?
I actually learned so much from this book myself. So I would say myself, probably at a senior level position, have changed my jobs so many times in my career. It's not all job search start as very rosy, right? Full of confidence or excitement. So you will have fear, you will have you're unsure about yourself, and sometimes it's extremely frustrated. So there are 10 emotions. All of this actually is all very well covered in this book. So Lauren, in your opinion, what do you think the most important emotion, I guess, normal people need to master in their job search journey?
That's a really difficult question, because everyone goes through different emotions at different stages in the journey. Probably the one that comes up the most would be something like fear and anxiety. But then on the other hand, what we're seeing a lot of these days is frustration, because people are spending so much time on a job search that is virtual, online, and people who are just focused on the job boards as their primary source of looking for jobs are highly likely to be very frustrated in their search. And so one of the things that I focus on in the book is not only how to deal with the emotions, but what are the job search strategies that you need to employ in order to overcome some of these emotions, in addition to some other tactics for dealing with your emotions. So for example, to deal with frustration, the number one thing that I encourage people to do is stop focusing on the job boards. It doesn't mean that you can't go on the job boards, but get out from behind the computer, at least from the job boards, and get into the real world with networking. And that can include the real world of LinkedIn and being very intentional with how you're networking. Because the number one way, you've heard it 100 times, I'm sure, the number one way people find jobs is through their network. And if you're relying on job boards, then you are very much setting yourself up to be frustrated. And so that's one of the reasons why I focus on some very important job search strategies to support these emotions as well. In the Take Control of Your Job Search book, I talk about the emotions of job search, but the reality is these emotions are present in all of our lives and in our career. Every single technique that I refer to support your emotional journey in the book can actually be employed in other aspects of your life. So one example of this, in the fear section, I talked about how this is a very important one, especially nowadays with a lot of unemployment in our world. I talk about how I actually used one of the tactics, imagine the worst case scenario. And this might sound like a very dark and difficult kind of suggestion, but a lot of times what I have learned is that our imagination takes things to a much worse place than the reality. So here's the situation I found myself in. I was in a very difficult business situation last year. I was waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, pit in my stomach, very unsure of myself, very frustrated, very anxious, and worried about all these terrible things that could happen because of this potential negative situation with a client. And so what I ended up doing is I realized, oh my gosh, I've got this tool in my toolbox, which is imagine the worst case scenario. And so I did that while I was lying awake in bed one night. And I said, okay, what's the worst that can happen here? I could lose a client. And it's a big client. It would hurt. Would we be able to survive? Would the business be okay? And if that happened, what would I need to do? Well, I'd probably need to make some difficult decisions around headcount. And I'd need to figure out how to message that to the industry and things like that. But I became very clear that if that did happen, I would be okay. And it wasn't the end of the world. Mm-hmm. And so this is a perfect example of a tool that was originally in my toolbox for, how to support job seekers, but it was something that I used myself. And then I found that I was able to sleep again at night after this, even though it didn't necessarily fix the situation. I knew what I could do if it happened and what are the things that I could do to prevent that from happening. So I just make the comment that these so many of these strategies for job search and dealing with the emotional ups and downs of your career can help in just about any aspect of your life as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for anyone going through either personal challenges or professional challenges, so master your emotions will be very helpful on those journeys as well. I think that's the widely applicable traits or virtues of those books. So if you broaden your thinking, a lot of things you learn from this book can be applied not only in job search journey, but also in some other areas as well. Lauren, you already touched on that a little bit. But this year, 2020, I think nobody expected this year to be this way, right? So it's very unexpected. Especially with the COVID-19 pandemic hit, right? It changed so many business and it changed so many individuals' personal life as well. And it make the job market probably very volatile and very competitive. So in addition to what you just shared, like prepare for the basic worst case scenario, what are other suggestions you have for our job seekers in this very challenging year of 2020?
Yes, the other job search tactic that I really encourage people to focus on is your personal brand. So what does this mean? Being very clear about who you are, what you do, and most importantly, the value that you can bring to a company. And so in a very crowded job market, like we're finding in 2020, this is important in your networking because when you're making outreaches on LinkedIn, for example, you don't want to talk about what they can do for you, why they should meet with you, but instead, what is in it for the person that you want to meet with for networking purposes. What this does by focusing on your personal brand is, number one, in your networking, it makes you very easy to help. Because if you are clear about who you are, what type of role that you're looking for, and the value you're bringing to an organization, then when someone says, yes, I'm looking for a marketing person with expertise in digital, oh yes, I know exactly the person because she was connecting with me and she made it very clear that she specialized in digital marketing. So that's very, very clear in terms of how you make yourself easy to help. Mm-hmm. The other piece on the emotional side that I find is very important about personal branding is what I call that it helps to unleash your inner rock star. And what I mean by this is when you're going through the frustration points of a job search, or when you're in a moment of fear and anxiety, by going back to who you are at your personal best, going back to the person who brings a tremendous amount of value to an organization and remembering who he or she is, mm-hmm. that can be very grounding and beneficial in a job search, because then it helps to lift your spirits, gives you confidence, and helps you carry on through some of the ups and downs.
I totally agree. I think everything starts from the mind side, and then the mind side will will help you guide your behavior. Just to give one example, I recently mentored a young student, a young professional, and on her resume, it's all about what I have done in the past. So exactly to Lauren's point is, what's your value proposition? What you can do to add value for your potential new employer? That punchline is not there. So on the resume review, it looks like just something is missed, but fundamentally it's probably the individual have not thought about this in that way. So if you change your mindset and truly understand who you are, what's your value proposition, then you can play that forward in a very positive way and people will receive that part. So I totally agree. I think it's all started from here. It requires a lot of deep thinking for sure. Thank you. This concludes our part 1. We'll be releasing part 2 shortly. In part 2, we'll be hearing Lauren's insights as a female leader running successful business, and also how we can continue advancing as female leaders. See you soon.